In 1961, Barney and Betty Hill of New Hampshire claimed that they had been abducted by aliens. Under her initial hypnosis session, Betty described the creatures as short men with black hair and large noses like Jimmy Durante. Barney's hypnosis session, on the other hand, described them as gray-skinned, large-headed, and bald aliens that we've come to know as the Greys. Carl Sagan, in his book The Demon-Haunted World, points out that Barney Hill's session took place 12 days after the airing of an episode of The Outer Limits featuring an alien roughly of this description. Subsequent sessions of Betty Hill's hypnosis matched with her husband's descriptions. Greys became a feature of abductions, but alleged encounters with them increased rapidly after the release of Steven Spielberg's film Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which featured aliens visually based on descriptions of the Greys. Over the years, abduction stories in popular culture have fed into one another, establishing the rich mythos we see in the ufology community today. The Greys serve the same function that witches, ghosts, and demons did in folklore. Demons such as incubi and succubi, for example, would enter the dreams of sleeping humans as sexual fantasies, so that the demons could reproduce. Similarly, fairies would steal mortal children and replace them with their own offspring. The Greys share this obsession with sexuality and reproduction through their collection of sperm and eggs, as well as their use of sexual humiliating procedures like anal probing. Sagan suggests that encounters with supernatural creatures in the past and the abduction stories of today could both stem from waking hallucinations and sleep paralysis. Another key species in the UFO community are the reptilians, a race of humanoid lizard people who can change into human form and have established themselves in positions of power. According to Michael Barkum's book, A Culture of Conspiracy, Apocalyptic Visions in Contemporary America, they seem to originate from Robert E. Howard's 1929 fictional story, The Shadow Kingdom. Howard was best known as the creator of Conan the Barbarian, but this story stars a similar character named Kull of Atlantis. In the narrative, Kull travels to a human kingdom called Volusia, only to find that it is secretly ruled by a pre-human race of serpent men who use hypnotism to blend in. The serpent men appeared in stories by H.P. Lovecraft and Clark Ashton Smith after that. They also appeared later on as minor players in Robert Shea and Robert Anton Wilson's 1975 satirical Illuminatus trilogy. But back to the 30s and 40s. A man named Maurice Doreal began discussing similar creatures as a matter of fact, as part of his Hollow Earth cosmology. Then in the 90s, a person known only as Branton began posting internet treatises describing an elaborate conspiracy with lizard men at the top. However, all these mentions were obscure and minor. It wasn't until the writings of conspiracy theorists like Jim Keith and especially David Icke that this idea became popular in UFO circles. Icke has attracted quite a few people with his reptilian hypothesis. He has brought many aspects of right-wing conspiracy theories, such as paranoia about the Illuminati, Freemasons, satanic cults, and, quote, international bankers into the UFO narrative. That last point is important. He includes the anti-Semitic fraud known as the Protocols of the Elders of Zion as one of his proofs, though he claims the true target is not the Jews but rather the reptilians. He's cozied up to neo-Nazis and far-right extremists during his career, but claims that his ideas are purely against the non-terrestrial adversaries, not any particular human group. At the same time, he has brought in quite a bit of New Age philosophy into the whole thing. In Icke's cosmology, the reptilians are not simple aliens. They are in fact extra-dimensional beings that lower themselves into our plane of existence. They are living frequencies representing all our negative emotions. They feed off those emotions, explaining why they seek to increase human misery. After the release of the Wachowski sisters' film The Matrix, Icke released his book The Children of the Matrix, in which he claims that reptilians are projecting artificial reality onto us from the moon, which is supposedly an artificial machine of some sort. Icke's theories are seductive, both because of his personal charisma, because they reflect in many ways the hopes and fears of the broader culture. The main theme is a critique of power structures. Reptilians represent repressive concepts like fascism, hierarchy, and violence. It is only through combating these ideas spiritually that we can be free. Now, much has been made of the similarities between Ike's theory and the 80s TV miniseries V about reptilian aliens disguised as humans trying to conquer the world. This show uses them as a metaphor for fascism. Likewise, the fantastic John Carpenter movie They Live uses a secret alien occupation as a metaphor for capitalism. The reptilians in Ike's mythology also fulfill the psychosexual functions of the Greys and their more supernatural ancestors. One of the accounts Ike gives in his initial explanation of the reptilians is a woman who claims George Bush Sr. transformed into his 10-foot reptoid form and raped her. Ike also draws from the moral panic about supposed satanic ritual abuse of children in the 80s and 90s that led to actual, entirely unfounded allegations of teachers and caregivers. This calls to mind the Pizzagate controversy forwarded by Alex Jones and others recently. This claim was that Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party were operating a human trafficking ring out of a pizzeria basement. This led to the harassment of the owners and the employees, escalated to a man shooting up the place. It should be said that not all believers in the reptilian conspiracy subscribe to the spiritual aspects. Some see them as physical beings from the Draco constellation. They have strict hierarchies based on genetic purity, with the winged Draco reptilians at the top of the social order and the hybrids, the ones that can shift between human and reptilian forms, are at the bottom. The Greys are included in this mythos, as well as the usually benevolent human-like aliens called the Nordics, and a host of other species, making the whole thing kind of a science fiction space opera. The interplay between fiction and conspiracy narratives is fascinating, and with the growing popularity of outlets like InfoWars, conspiracy theories are something we're going to have to understand if we're going to combat the culture they create. I said earlier that Ike is seductive because he offers a critique of existing power structures and an explanation for the problem of evil. Everything bad that happens is because a secret group wills it. This is actually comforting to a lot of people. It creates an enemy to fight against rather than an acknowledgement that the systems screw you over precisely because they don't care. Although the reptilian meta-narrative is a critique, it is ultimately a pointless one because it leads people to create scapegoats instead of doing the hard work of challenging oppressive hierarchies like sexism, racism, classism, etc. These ideas are baked into our very legal, economic, and social systems. There's no single enemy to defeat, just a mindless perpetuation of injustice that we ourselves participate in.